Mom texted, "Don't come to your sister's wedding. We don't want your negativity there." I stared at the message. The blue light of the screen reflected in my black coffee. I didn't gasp. I didn't spiral. In my line of work, you learn to spot a breach of contract instantly. This wasn't a family dispute. It was a termination of services. I took a sip, set the mug down on my glass desk, and typed my reply with steady fingers. Understood. But I just canceled the venue booking. Her response came instantly, 3 frantic dots dancing on the screen like a nervous heartbeat. Wait, why? I typed back one last time, because the contract is in my name, Mother, and I don't sponsor events I'm banned from. I turned my phone face down. The silence in my apartment wasn't lonely. It was expensive. Have you ever had to remind someone who was actually paying the bills? Tell me your story in the comments. I picked up my office phone and dialed Marcus. Marcus owned the Gilded Oak, the venue my family had been bragging about for 6 months. He picked up on the second ring. "Brianna, just checking in on the final details for Saturday." His voice was cheerful, expecting another routine confirmation. "Not exactly," I said. My voice didn't shake. "I need to withdraw my sponsorship from the Thompson wedding." There was a pause. A heavy, confused silence. "Withdraw sponsorship, Brianna. The wedding is in 48 hours. The final balance is due today by 5. "I know," I said, "and since I am no longer attending, I am removing my personal guarantee and my event insurance from the contract." I heard him typing furiously in the background. "Okay. If you pull the guarantee, the industry friends discount is voided. That bumps the remaining balance back up to rack rate." I checked my watch. Correct. That brings the total due today to $68,450. I could hear the panic starting to bleed into his professional tone. "Brianna, do your parents know about this?" "They will, soon," I said. "Please invoice them directly. If the balance isn't paid by 5, you know the protocol." "I have to lock the doors," he finished quietly. "I have to release the staff." "I understand," I said. "Do what you have to do." I hung up. I didn't feel guilty. I felt lighter. For 4 years, I had been the invisible steel beams holding up a crumbling building. Today, I just stepped back and let gravity take over. I looked at the clock on my wall. It was 1:15. They had exactly 3 hours and 45 minutes to come up with $68,000. I went back to my spreadsheet. The numbers looked different today. They didn't look like obligations anymore. They looked like history. To understand why I didn't hesitate, you have to understand the business model of my family. On Instagram, the Thompsons were old money. They had the country club membership, the leased Range Rover, and the sprawling estate on the edge of town. But in reality, they were insolvent. I wasn't just the eldest daughter. I was the shadow financier who kept the lights on. For 4 years, I had transferred exactly $5,760 on the 1st of every month. It wasn't a gift. It was a lifestyle retainer. It covered the lease payments my father couldn't make and the club dues my mother refused to give up because appearances are assets. And then there was Ashley. My sister wasn't just a bride. She was a product my parents were trying to sell. She was 26, beautiful, and completely helpless. They called her an influencer, but her engagement numbers were bought just like her wardrobe. I paid a separate retainer of $3,000 a month for her image maintenance, public relations, staging, and designer rentals. The goal was simple: keep Ashley looking expensive enough to attract a man like Joshua. Joshua was a venture capitalist with a portfolio worth millions. He was the exit strategy. My parents treated him like a winning lottery ticket they had already cashed. I pulled up my master spreadsheet. I looked at the column labeled Cumulative Investment. $265,000 over 4 years. People always ask why I stayed. Why? I kept paying for people who treated me like a shameful secret. For a long time, I told myself it was loyalty. I told myself I was being the good sister. But staring at that number, I finally admitted the truth. It wasn't love. It was the sunk cost fallacy. In economics, a sunk cost is money that has already been spent and cannot be recovered. Rational actors should ignore it when making future decisions, but humans don't work that way. We throw good money after bad because stopping feels like admitting defeat. I had kept paying the retainer not because I thought they would change, but because cutting them off meant admitting that the last 4 years were a total waste. It meant admitting that I had purchased a seat at a table where I was never going to be served. I had treated my family like a failing startup, pouring in capital and hoping for a turnaround that wasn't coming. I looked at the venue cancellation confirmation on my screen. This was my first rational decision in a decade. I was done trying to save an investment that had zero return. I wasn't losing a family today. I was liquidating a bad asset. I closed the spreadsheet. The ledger was balanced, the debt was bad, and I was finally closing the account. At 2:15, my phone lit up. It was Mom. I let it ring twice before answering, putting it on speaker so I could keep typing. I expected screaming. I expected rage. But what I got was far more revealing. I got annoyance. "Brianna," she snapped, her voice tight with the specific stress of someone trying to keep up appearances in public. "Pick up. We have a situation. The venue coordinator just came in here claiming there is a billing issue with the final payment. He says the card was declined." She paused, waiting for me to apologize. "You need to call the bank right now and authorize the charge. We are starting the rehearsal in 20 minutes, and this is embarrassing." I took a slow sip of my water. The level of delusion was breathtaking. She didn't think I had cut them off. She thought I was incompetent. In her world, I existed solely to facilitate her lifestyle. The idea that I would voluntarily stop was as foreign to her as gravity stopping. "It wasn't a banking error, Mom," I said. My voice was calm, almost bored. "I called Marcus myself. I revoked the authorization." There was a silence on the other end, so profound I could hear the background noise of the venue, clinking glasses, laughter, the hum of expensive air conditioning. "What?" she whispered. "I told you I wasn't coming," I said. "And since I am not a guest, I am not a sponsor. You are the client now, Angela. You have until 5 o'clock to pay the balance, or Marcus locks the doors." "You can't do this," she hissed. "Joshua's parents are flying in. This is a $60,000 weekend. You are going to ruin everything because you're being petty." "I'm not being petty," I said. "I'm being fiscally responsible. I'm cutting my losses." I hung up. I didn't block her yet. I needed to see the timeline play out. 2 minutes later, a notification popped up. A voice note from Ashley. I put on my headphones and pressed play. Her voice was shrill, distorted by bad acoustics, likely recorded in a bathroom to hide from her fiancé. "You are so jealous," she spat. "You have always been jealous. Just because I found a man who actually wants to take care of me, and you're going to die alone with your spreadsheets. You are ugly, Brianna. Inside and out. You're just a stain on my aesthetic." I replayed it. Jealous. It was their favorite word. For years I had let it hurt me. I had let it make me feel small. But listening to it now, dissecting the venom in her voice, I finally understood the dynamic. It wasn't jealousy. It was the curse of the competent child. Psychologists talk about the glass child, the sibling who is looked through, because the other one takes up all the energy. But it goes deeper than that. My parents adored Ashley, not despite her helplessness, but because of it. Her neediness made them feel essential. Her chaos gave them a purpose. I, on the other hand, solved my own problems. I paid my own bills. I built my own life, and they hated me for it. My competence didn't make them proud. It made them feel obsolete. My stability was a mirror that reflected their own chaos back at them. Ashley was the pet they could dress up and control. I was the landlord they resented paying rent to. I saved the voice note to my desktop. I labeled the file evidence. They thought they were punishing me by excluding me. They didn't realize they had just handed me the scissors to cut the cord. I wasn't jealous of Ashley. I pitied her. She was trapping herself in a marriage based on a lie funded by a sister she despised. And the check was about to bounce. I picked up the phone again. This time I dialed Uncle Robert. Robert was the black sheep of the family, an accountant who lived in a modest house in the suburbs and refused to lend my parents money. They called him cheap. I knew he was just the only one who could do math. He answered on the first ring. "Brianna, everything okay?" "No," I said. "I just pulled the plug on the wedding. I need you to help me audit the accounts." There was a pause and then a heavy sigh. I wondered when this day would come. Give me access. I sent him the login credentials for the family trust, a legal entity I technically managed but had allowed my parents to oversee for years. We spent the next hour on a video call, scrolling through the transaction history. It was worse than I thought. The trust was empty. The rainy day fund my grandmother had left for emergencies was gone, drained by withdrawals labeled venue deposit, bridal couture, and catering advance. They had spent every dime of the inheritance on a party I was paying for twice. "They were double-dipping," Robert murmured, his voice tight with disgust. "They used the trust to pay the deposits, and then they used your monthly transfers to refill it just enough to keep the bank from flagging it. It's a Ponzi scheme, Brianna, and you're the investor." I felt a cold numbness spreading through my chest. It wasn't shock, it was confirmation. They hadn't just used me. They had systematized it. Wait, Robert said, squinting at the screen. What is this? He highlighted a pending charge on the credit card statement linked to the trust. It was dated yesterday. $24,000 to the street. Regis Maldives. I leaned closer to my screen. The card number listed wasn't the trust debit card. It was my corporate American Express. The one I used for client bookings. The one I kept in a safe in my office. My blood ran cold. That's my card, I whispered. How do they have my card? Then I remembered. 3 months ago I had visited for Easter. I had left my purse on the counter while I helped Mom with dinner. She must have taken a photo of it. She had booked a $24,000 honeymoon for Ashley, using my business credit line. This wasn't just taking advantage of family. This was wire fraud. This was identity theft. This was a felony. I didn't call Mom. I didn't call Ashley. I picked up my cell phone and dialed the number on the back of my Amex card. American Express Fraud Department, a voice answered. I need to report unauthorized activity, I said. A charge for $24,000 was made yesterday. I did not authorize it. Please freeze the card and initiate a chargeback. Certainly, ma'am. We will flag this as fraud immediately. The vendor will be notified and the reservation canceled. Thank you, I said. And please note for the record, the individual who used the card does not have permission to use my accounts. If they attempt to verify, do not clear it. I hung up. Uncle Robert was watching me on the video call, a look of grim respect on his face. You know what happens when you report fraud on that scale, he asked. The bank calls the police. I know, I said. Let them. I closed the laptop. The forensic audit was complete. The verdict was guilty, and the sentence was about to be carried out. It was 5:30 on a Friday evening, the golden hour, the time photographers kill for. I wasn't at the vineyard. I was in my apartment watching the sunset reflect off the city skyline. But I had eyes on the ground. Marcus, the venue owner, had promised to text me when it was done. At the Gilded Oak, the rehearsal dinner was in full swing. My parents were holding court-clinking champagne flutes, basking in the glow of a wedding they hadn't paid for. Joshua, the groom, was likely making a toast, blissfully unaware that the ground beneath him was made of quicksand. At 5:45, Marcus walked into the banquet hall. He didn't come alone. He had 2 security guards with him. He approached the head table where my father sat. The music stopped. The room went quiet. Marcus didn't whisper. He didn't pull them aside to spare their feelings. He announced it clearly, professionally, and loud enough for every guest to hear. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, he said, the primary payment authorization for this event has been revoked by the contract holder. Furthermore, the secondary payment method on file, the American Express card, ending in 4021, has been declined and flagged for fraudulent activity. I imagined the color draining from my mother's face. The way Ashley's smile would falter then shatter. We have tried to process the balance of $68,450 multiple times in the last hour, Marcus continued. Every attempt has failed. Per our contract terms, if the balance is not settled in full 48 hours prior to the event, the booking is void. He checked his watch. You have 30 minutes to provide a valid form of payment for the full amount, or you must vacate the premises immediately. If you refuse, we will be forced to involve law enforcement for theft of services. My phone lit up. Mom, then Dad, then Ashley, then Mom again. They were calling in a frenzy, desperate, terrified. They weren't calling to apologize. They were calling because I was the only person in the world who could make the bad man go away. I let it ring. I watched the screen glow and fade, glow and fade. Finally, on the 7th call, I answered. Brianna, Mom screamed, her voice cracking with hysteria. They are kicking us out. They are saying the card is fraud. You have to fix this. Tell them it's a mistake. Tell them you authorize it. I can't authorize it, Mom, I said. My voice was ice. I reported the card stolen this afternoon. Because it was. You what? Her voice dropped to a horrified whisper. You reported me. You used my corporate card to book a $24,000 vacation without my permission, I said. That is wire fraud. The bank froze the account. And as for the venue, I understood your text perfectly. You didn't want my negativity there. My money is part of me, Mother. It comes from my work, my time, my life. If I'm not welcome, my money isn't either. Please, she begged, the word ragged and desperate. Joshua's parents are watching. Everyone is watching. Just pay it. We'll pay you back. I swear. With what I asked. The trust is empty. I know. I checked. I hung up. I didn't wait for her to scream again. I didn't need to hear it. The silence that followed was heavy, absolute, and final. At the venue, I knew what was happening. The guards were stepping forward. The guests were murmuring, confused and embarrassed. The illusion of the wealthy, perfect Thompson family was dissolving in real time, leaving only the ugly, bankrupt truth underneath. And then the second blow landed. While the chaos unfolded inside, a courier pulled up to the curb outside the venue. He walked past the confused valet, past the weeping bride, and straight up to the groom. "Delivery for Mr. Joshua Sterling," he said. He handed Joshua a thick, sealed envelope. It wasn't a gift. It was the ledger. I wasn't in the parking lot of the Gilded Oak, but I know Joshua Sterling. He is a venture capitalist. He doesn't make decisions based on emotion. He makes them based on data. And I had just sent him the most comprehensive data set of his life. The courier, a man I paid double to ensure hand-to-hand delivery, watched as Joshua opened the thick manila envelope. Inside wasn't a wedding gift. It was a forensic audit. It contained 4 years of bank statements, the trust fund transaction history showing the unauthorized withdrawals, and a copy of the lifestyle retainer agreement my parents had implicitly operated under. It was the shadow ledger brought into the light. Joshua didn't throw the papers. He didn't scream. He leaned against his vintage Porsche and began to read. He read the way he read pitch decks, scanning for weakness, for inflation, for fraud. He saw the $5,000 monthly transfers from me that kept the lights on at my parents' estate. He saw the credit card debt masked by my bailouts. He saw the truth. The Thompson dynasty was a shell company, and I was the only one with any capital. Then Ashley came running out. I can picture it perfectly. The mascara running down her face, the $3,000 dress I paid for dragging on the asphalt. She would have run to him not as a partner, but as a damsel. She would have expected him to pull out his black card, march inside, and silence the venue manager with a wave of his wealth. "Joshua," she likely screamed. "You have to help. Mom and Dad are being humiliated. Just pay them. We'll fix it later." But Joshua didn't move. He held up a single document from the stack. It was a copy of the financial disclosure form from their prenuptial agreement. "You listed the family trust as a primary asset," Joshua said. His voice would have been calm, terrifyingly level. "You claimed a liquid value of $2 million. You claimed your parents were self-sustaining philanthropists?" "They are," Ashley would have sobbed. "This is just a misunderstanding. Brianna is messing with the accounts." "No," Joshua said. He held up the audit. "Brianna isn't messing with the accounts. She is the account. This ledger proves that the trust is empty. It proves your parents are insolvent. It proves that for the last 4 years, your entire lifestyle, the clothes, the car, the PR team, was funded by your sister." He looked at her, and the look wasn't heartbreak. It was the cold calculation of an investor realizing he had been sold a fraudulent bill of goods. "This is material misrepresentation," he said. "You lied on the disclosures. You aren't an heiress, Ashley. You're a dependent. And your parents aren't old money. They are a bad debt looking for a new co-signer." "Joshua, please," she begged, reaching for his arm. "I love you." "I don't invest in fraud," he said. He stepped back, opening the car door. "The wedding is off. My lawyers will be in touch to void the prenup based on non-disclosure of liabilities." He got into the car. The engine roared to life, a sound of raw, expensive power. He didn't look back at the venue. He didn't look back at my parents, who were now being escorted out the side door by security. He didn't look back at the bride he was supposed to marry in 12 hours. He drove away. Ashley was left standing alone in the parking lot, wearing a dress she couldn't afford, crying over a wedding that didn't exist, waiting for a bailout that was never coming. The due diligence was complete. The deal was dead. It is 10 o'clock on Saturday morning. Right now, I was supposed to be standing in a satin bridesmaid dress. I hated watching my sister marry a man she lied to, paid for by a venue I couldn't afford. Instead, I am sitting on my balcony with a cup of coffee. The city below is waking up, and for the first time in 4 years, my phone is silent. I blocked them all last night. Mom, Dad, Ashley. I didn't leave a door open. I changed the locks. I opened my banking app. The balance stared back at me, $68,450. It wasn't just a number. It was my severance package. The monthly transfer of $5,760 was gone from the upcoming tab. The subscription was canceled. People talk about peace like it's a feeling you stumble upon, like finding a $20 bill in an old coat. But I realized this morning that peace is not given. It is budgeted. It is a luxury item you purchase by refusing to pay for war. I didn't lose a family this weekend. I lost a liability. I stopped funding a narrative that required my erasure to function. The price of my freedom was high. It cost me a relationship with my parents. It cost me the illusion of being a good daughter. But looking at the skyline, breathing air that didn't taste like obligation, I knew I had gotten a bargain. I kept my money. I bought my life back, and that is the only return on investment that matters. If you have ever had to audit your own family to save your sanity, share this video. You aren't crazy and you aren't alone.